winter of 1916, a man named Vladimir lived above a shoemaker's shop in Zurich. Broke, half forgotten, trailed by police who no longer bothered being subtle because nobody believed he mattered enough to justify the effort. He wrote pamphlets that nobody printed. He addressed rooms with more empty chairs than listeners. Months before it happened, he told a circle of young socialists he doubted he would live to see a revolution in Russia. 14 months later, he stepped off a sealed train into Petrograd, and within the year he commanded the largest territorial state on the planet. He didn't build that power in 1917. He built it across 27 years of exile. Theory, faction, discipline, an organizational doctrine that almost nobody outside a few hundred people thought worth watching. The empire fell in weeks. The man had been ready for decades. History happens in weeks, but only for the people who spent the decades aiming at the right week. That gap between the two timelines is the entire problem. Closing it requires a structural mapping of power. The threat is the institution itself, theater designed to act as an obstacle, keeping ambitious men busy, extended, and ultimately powerless. The tactical objective is to bypass that theater and locate the exact node where real leverage pools, so that by the time the calendar turns, your hands are already on the controls. Here is how that map is drawn. The intention is always to bend an institution toward your own design. Your workplace, your university, your community. The immediate obstacle is scale. A man's thinking has already arrived at the scale of the change he wants to make, but his actual reach hasn't left the building he works in. He sees the whole board, but he can only move one pawn, badly. On a corner, nobody's watching. This mismatch produces exactly two stupid responses, and most ambitious men cycle through both before they learn better. The first is shouting. He starts performing the scale of his ambition before he has the substance to back it. Broadcasting opinions on a structure he has no actual grip on. Spending his only renewable resource, credibility, on arguments that change nothing because nobody with the power to change anything is listening. Noise feels like progress. It is the opposite. It announces your position to the people who will later block you, and it teaches everyone around you to file you under talks. Holds nothing. The second failure is despair. He concludes the gap is permanent, that the distance between his vision and his rank is evidence the vision was delusional, and he quietly downgrades his own ambition to match his current leverage. This is the more common death. It doesn't look like failure from the outside. It looks like maturity, like settling down, like getting realistic. It's just resignation, wearing a more respectable coat. There's a third option, and it's the only one that compounds. An octopus has roughly 500 million neurons, and most of them aren't in its head. They're distributed through its arms, each one capable of semi-independent action, reaching, gripping, tasting the water for prey the central brain hasn't even processed yet. But the eyes stay central. The eyes don't grip anything. They don't taste anything. Their entire function is to track the wider scene the arms can't yet reach, so that when an arm finally extends, it extends toward something already located, already understood, already chosen. The arms do the gripping. The eyes do the choosing. And the eyes were never built to panic about how short the arms currently are. Your tentacles are your direct capacity to act on the world. Your title, your capital, your team, your audience, your formal authority. They are slow. They only extend as far as years of accumulated work. Let them extend, and no act of will shortens that timeline. Your eyes are your attention, your map of how a structure actually works, your understanding of where its real decisions get made. Eyes cost nothing but discipline, and they can range anywhere immediately, regardless of your current rank, your salary, or whether anyone in the building knows your name. Here is the part almost nobody tells you. Power inside any institution, a company, a party, a market, a church, a nation, does not sit evenly across its surface. It pools every large structure, no matter how sprawling its org chart looks. has a small number of points where a disproportionate share of consequential decisions actually get made. A single committee, a single relationship, a single budget line, a single piece of legacy infrastructure nobody dares touch. A single person whose signature triggers everything downstream. Everywhere else in the structure is theater. Title without proximity to that node is decoration. Status without proximity to that node is a costume. Skill that separates men who eventually move history from men who spend a lifetime busy is the ability to locate that node years before they have any business being near it. And then to keep their eyes locked on it without flinching, without resentment, and without trying to force their way toward it before their actual capability has caught up. Locating it is mostly a matter of refusing to be fooled by the formal chart. You trace decisions backward instead of forward, not who holds the title, but whose objection actually stops something, whose approval actually starts something, whose absence actually delays something. You do this quietly, as the lowest person in the room, taking note of which names recur in every real turning point, regardless of which names recur on the letterhead. Then you watch for the calendar. Most people never think to keep the calendar of transitions. Institutions don't change gradually. They change at specific, somewhat predictable seams. A succession, a funding cycle running dry, a generational handoff, a technology making the old gatekeepers obsolete, a war exhausting the old order's legitimacy. Most of an institution's life is just maintenance of the existing arrangement. The actual openings, the moments where the structure becomes plastic enough for a single well-placed person to redirect it, are narrow and they are scheduled by forces outside your control. Your job for years is not to force one open. Your job is to know exactly when the next one is likely to arrive, and to be standing closer to it than anyone else when it does. This is where most ambitious men sabotage themselves without noticing. They mistake general prestige for proximity to the node. They collect followers, credentials, a louder voice, a bigger title in a department that was never close to the real lever. And they call this progress, because it's measurable and it feels good, and other people congratulate them for it. None of it transfers. The morning the real opening arrives, they discover they spent a decade building reach in the wrong direction. Tentacles fully extended toward a part of the ocean nothing important ever passes through. The corrective discipline is brutal and simple. Every unit of effort gets tested against one question. Does this bring me closer to the specific node? Or does it just make me feel like I'm doing something? Side arguments you can't yet win. Audiences that admire you, but can't promote you. Fights over territory adjacent to the real lever, but not on it, all of it gets cut. Not because it's bad in the abstract, but because attention is the one resource you have that doesn't grow with effort. And every hour spent on the adjacent thing is an hour not spent sharpening your read on the real one. Protecting that attention has to be close to ruthless, not occasionally disciplined, ruthless. The men who eventually move structures are, almost without exception, strangely boring to be around for the 10 years before it happens, because they said no to nearly everything that wasn't the no. There's an older case than Lenin's that demonstrates this exact loop of intention and obstacle. Talleyrand had one objective: to control France's relationship with the rest of Europe. The obstacle was 5 successive regimes that hated each other, surviving the fall of the monarchy, the terror, the Directory, the Empire, and the Restoration, while colleagues who'd been louder, more principled, more visibly committed to any single cause, were imprisoned or executed in the gaps between governments. He wasn't loyal to factions. He was loyal to one node. Whichever institution currently held actual legitimacy to negotiate France's relationship with the rest of Europe. Regimes changed underneath him constantly. The node didn't move. His eyes never left it, even while his formal position changed costumes 5 times. This is what frictionless compounding actually looks like from the inside. It isn't dramatic. For most of the timeline, it looks like nothing is happening at all, which is exactly what makes it unbearable for men wired for shouting. You keep doing competent, unglamorous work at whatever rung you currently occupy. You keep your private map of the real decision points updated, quietly, never performing your knowledge of it. You decline the noise. You decline the despair. You let the calendar run. And then, the way it happened to the man in Zurich, the structure and the work arrive at the same place on the same week, with no translation needed between them. He hadn't spent 1917 inventing a strategy on the spot. He'd spent 27 years deciding in advance exactly which lever he would grab. The moment the old order's legitimacy cracked, the loyalty of an exhausted army. The organizational vehicle of the workers' councils already built and waiting. Cadres already trained for the administrative seizure of exactly the right offices in exactly the right city. When the provisional government's authority finally gave way, his vision and the structure's vacancy fit together with no gap between them to close. He didn't have to push his way into the opening. He had been staring at that exact opening for so long that by the time it arrived, it had already been shaped, in his own thinking, to fit him. That is the entire promise of keeping your eyes on the node instead of demanding your tentacles arrive early. You stop resenting the years your reach can't cover. You stop performing power you don't have. You let your hands stay small and patient, while your attention stays fixed on the one point in the structure large enough to matter. For as long as it takes the calendar to turn, the compounding is frictionless precisely because nothing has to be improvised at the end. The vision was already calibrated to the structure years before the structure had any reason to notice you. Decades of nothing, for everyone watching from outside. Then the week where everything you aimed at for that long finally arrives in the same place, at the same time, already fitting.